بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
على رسول الله وعلى آله وأصحابه ومن اهتدى بهداه. أما بعد. We got to hadith number 6 of this book, BULUGH al MARAM by Al-Hafiz ibn Hajar Al-Asqalani alayhi rahmatullah. And he was from the Imams of Hadith, as we mentioned, from the major Imams of Hadith. He has over 150 books authored. Was from the most famous of them, except BULUGH al MARAM, was from his almost always referred to in the books of fiqh. Fatteh al-Bari بشرح صحيح البخاري. Fatteh al-Bari, one of his most famous books of Hafiz ibn Hajar. It's an explanation of Sahih al-Bukhari, and it's a huge reference for the scholars who came after him, rahimahullah ta'ala. We spoke of hadith number 5, which was the hadith of Abu Hurairah. لا يغتسل أحدكم في الماء الدائم وهو جنوب. None of you should make ghusl in water that is stagnant, that is still, not moving, not runny. Not runny like river water, which runs. It's still, water that's still, in maybe a pond or in a swimming pool and so on. لا يغتسل أحدكم في الماء الدائم وهو جنوب. No one should make ghusl in it while he is junub. Junub means in a state of major sexual impurity. It means in a state of impurity, major impurity, which means this person can only pray now with ghusl. Don't make ghusl in this water when you are a junub. Some of the scholars, based on this hadith, say if a person makes ghusl in water, another person cannot make ghusl with that same water, because of this hadith, and it's in Sahih Muslim. They say because the Prophet ﷺ commanded not to use it, does the water become dirty? No, it doesn't become dirty. If I go into water, will it automatically become impure, najis? No, it won't become najis. Maybe something changes might happen to it, but it won't be najis. Therefore, why can we not use it? Some of the scholars say because so therefore we are not allowed to use it, not because it's najis, but because somebody else has used it already to lift the hadith. And this is the madhab of Ahmad ibn Hanbal and Abu Hanifa rahimahullah, and maybe a Shafi'i, if I remember rightly, and I'm not sure about Shafi'i. Imam Malik doesn't hold this view, and it's also the choice of many of the later muhaqqiqeen, later of Ahlul Hadith, and the Hanbali madhab also, like a Shaykh Taqiyuddin ibn Taymiyyah and his student Ibn Qayyim, who don't see this opinion. Why? They say because Ibn Hazm uses an interesting analogy here, even though he's a Zahiri and the Zahiris don't use qiyas. But he says if a person makes wudu using that to wash their arm, the water that touches the upper part of the arm will be the same water that touches the next part. So if we say water that has been used for tahara can't be used for tahara again, it means every single wudu of yours is invalid. Because if you wash part of your face, for example, the top part of the face, water will run down. It's washed this part and it's also washing this part and it's washing this part. So he says this analogy doesn't make sense. Some scholars explain this hadith and say the Prophet ﷺ said not to use it because people don't like to use water that is still, that's already been used like that. Somebody's made ghusl in it, no one's now going to want to use that water. Not because it's forbidden, but because it's makruh. Because it's makruh, some of the scholars. Okay. We mentioned the hadith of a companion, somebody who accompanied the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we said, is this a problem? We don't know who the narrator is. The man says, عن رجل صاحب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. صاحب النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. A man who accompanied the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says, that the Prophet ﷺ said. We don't know who this man is. How do we know whether he's trustworthy, not trustworthy, and so on? What did we say last week?
Because he's a Sahabi.
He's a Sahabi, so we don't need to bother with that. Anyone other than Sahaba, we need to, not we, the scholars of Hadith, scholars of Jarh and Ta'deel. Some of the major scholars of Jarh and Ta'deel like Ali ibn Madini and Abi Hatim, and Muhammad ibn Ismail al-Bukhari, and Muslim ibn al-Hajjaj, and al-Daraqutni. These are from the major scholars of Jarh and Ta'deel. They look at narrators of Hadith, who is sound, who is not sound, whose narration is valid, who is not, who is weak, who is not, who is sound, etc. Does it apply to companions radiallahu anhum? No. It doesn't apply. The fact that he's a companion is sufficient evidence that he's trustworthy and reliable. And therefore, for us to say this is a broken chain, is that going to clean the socks in the chain? Is not maybe because regardless of who the companion is, the hadith is valid. He says, نهى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أن تغتسل المرأة بفضل الرجل أو الرجل بفضل المرأة. He forbade a man from bathing with water left over by a woman, and he forbade a woman from bathing in water left over by a man. وَلْيَغْتَرِفَا جَمِيعًا. And they can use it to scoop water together. How does this work? Someone has made wudu using a container. I've made wudu and completed. The water that is left now cannot be used by a woman based on this hadith. Cannot be used by a woman. Similarly, a woman does this, she makes wudu and leaves water behind. This hadith states a man cannot come and use it. Now, can a woman come use it? Yes, based on this hadith, yes. Can a man use that left over by a man? Based on the hadith, yes. We'll come to see in a minute how the scholars understand this hadith. The second hadith, the seventh hadith, Ali ibn Abbas. These two hadith are linked. Ali ibn Abbas رضي الله تعالى عنهما أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم كان يغتسل بفضل ميمونة رضي الله عنها. أخرجه Muslim. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم would make ghusl with water left over by Maymuna. So now we have a hadith prohibiting, saying a man cannot use the water left behind by a woman. And now we have an authentic hadith similarly which says the Prophet ﷺ used water left behind by Maymuna. And this is why the scholars have had to combine between these ahadith. And this shows the importance of returning back to people of knowledge when it comes to understanding the Sharia. Very important. Because a person of knowledge will tell you this hadith is explained by another hadith. This hadith doesn't mean what you think. This hadith means something else. Or this hadith is abrogated, no longer applicable. And this is one example. So how do they combine? Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, who is the author of this book, says the prohibition is one of tanzih, meaning it's better to avoid. It's better to avoid. And the fact that it's not forbidden is proven by the hadith of who? Ibn Abbas, this one we've just mentioned. The Prophet ﷺ did it. طيب, Al-Hafidh says this is disliked, not forbidden. How can the Prophet ﷺ do something disliked? Al-Hafidh ibn Hajar, just like many other scholars say, is disliked to use water left behind by a woman and similarly by a man. How can the Prophet ﷺ do something that is disliked? The Prophet ﷺ do something makruh? So how do we explain this thing? La, how would the Prophet ﷺ, how would Al-Hafidh need to explain it? Ibn Hajar has to explain that. He says it's makruh, and the scholars before him have said it's makruh.
Was there a circumstance at the time when you done it?
But then it wouldn't be makruh, it would still be haram, but allowed in that circumstance. But now we're saying it's makruh, generally, it's allowed. And it's just preferable not to do.
What would Jamhur ulama say?
Hey, the vast majority say this wudu is valid.
Why for this one?
Huh?
Why for this one?
That might be one way of combining, but the scholars didn't say that. The principle, generally speaking, if the Prophet ﷺ was to do something which he didn't allow in another, it's to show that that thing is allowed. It's to show that that thing is allowed. Otherwise, imagine we didn't have this hadith of Ibn Abbas. We didn't know the Prophet ﷺ did it. What would we have to say? It is haram for a man to use water left over by a woman. And it's haram for a woman to use water left over by a man. Because the prohibition is there. The prohibition is there. So it's done by the Prophet ﷺ in order to show that it's allowed. In order that it's allowed. Okay. Generally speaking, the overall principle is, if water, this principle is the principle used by the vast majority of many companions and a large number of tabi'een, because there are lots of hadiths, some of them seem to contradict each other, some of them seem to be slightly different. The overall principle is, if water has not been changed in any way, it can be used. Simple as. Large, small, whatever. If water has not been changed in any way, then it can be used. Taste, water hasn't changed in terms of taste, water hasn't been changed in terms of smell, and neither has it been changed in terms of color. Those three things. It hasn't changed in those things, it can be used. If a person, people we use taps to make wudu and so on, so we won't often, usually, apply this, the hadith of using water left behind by someone else, or using water already used by someone else, because it goes down the sink after it's been used. However, if that was to occur, that water, if it was avoided, that would be better, in order to be on the safe side. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم طهور إناء أحدكم إذا ولغ فيه الكلب أن يغسله 7 مرات أولاهن بالتراب. The purification, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم says, the purification of the utensil belonging to one of you. Utensil is a container used to put drink in, food in, and so on. The purification of the utensil belonging to one of you, if it has been licked by a dog. In other words, the dog has drunk or put his tongue inside this drink that's within the container. أن يغسله 7 مرات, that is washed 7 times. أولاهن بالتراب, the first of them with soil, with turab. And in another narration, إحداهن بالتراب, one of them, one of the 7, with soil. And in one, the 8th with soil. And most scholars prefer the first one. You use the first one, soil. Use soil to wash the first wash, and then 7 washes after that. Now, this hadith is used by the majority of scholars to say that the saliva of a dog is najis, it's impure. Because the Prophet ﷺ commanded for it to be washed, and therefore it's najis. Because if it wasn't najis, he wouldn't have asked for it to be washed. And in another narration, he asked for it, he asked for it to be poured out. And the Prophet ﷺ wouldn't have commanded drink to be poured out and wasted if it wasn't impure, najis. And this is the madhab of Abu Hanifa, rahimahullah, and Shafi'i and Ahmed. And Imam Malik says the dog is tahir. He says the dog is tahir. His body is pure, his saliva is pure, his teeth are pure, and so on. Why? He says because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَكُلُوا مِمَّا أَمْسَكْنَا عَلَيْكُمْ, eat from that which it has caught for you. I.e., the dog, eat from that which the dog has caught for you. Dog used for, what's that English for Said? Hunting. Yeah? A dog can be used for hunting, to grab the food, the hunting, that which is being hunted, and bring it for you, and Allah commands to eat from it. And if a dog is allowed to be used for hunting, for food, then it can't be najis. And he uses a narration which is in Sahih Bukhari by Ibn Umar radiallahu anhuma, that the dogs would كانت الكلاب تلد علينا فتقبل وتدبر. The dogs would make their way up and down around us. فكانوا لا يغسلون شيئا من ذلك, and they wouldn't wash any of it. They wouldn't wash any of that. So this is what he relies upon, rahimahullah. And the majority of scholars say using a dog for hunting doesn't necessitate that you're going to eat the food with its saliva on it. It's going to be washed, it's going to be cooked, etc., etc. And as for the hadith of Ibn Umar, radiallahu anhuma, then that which a dog makes impure doesn't have to be washed unless we're certain that some impurity has hit that place, and unless we're going to use that place to pray. If we see a dog on the street and its saliva is spilling all over the street, we don't have to wash that. We're not going to pray on that. We just continue walking as always. And of course the difference between the scholars is there. Malik ibn Anas says, the fact that the Prophet ﷺ commanded for it to be washed 7 times, one with soil, proves that this washing is not because it's najis. Otherwise, if it was najis, 3 washes are enough, 4 washes might be enough, 2 washes might be enough, soap and 1 wash might be enough. So why 7? He shows that it's an act of worship only. Just like wudu, washing 3 times, act of worship. Just like wudu, washing 3 times, an act of worship. Wiping the head in wudu is an act of worship. Do anyone clean their head by wiping in wudu? You don't clean your head by wiping. Anyone clean their arms by washing it 3 times? It's not going to have that huge of an effect. It's a wash, but it's not a huge effect. Wiping over the socks, is that going to clean the socks? Maybe it'll make them less clean. And so it means that these are simply acts of worship. That's the opinion of Malik rahimahullah. Is the body of a dog impure also, as well as his saliva? Here, 2 views between the fuqaha. Abu Hanifa rahimahullah says no, the body is pure. The body is pure because the prohibition comes in saliva. Wash the saliva, not the body. And Ahmed and Shafi'i say the body is pure. They say because the mouth is the purest thing in the body. This is of course a suggestion by the fuqaha. The mouth of the dog is pure. If the mouth is najis, then the rest of the body is definitely najis. And this is why the washing of the dog, if a dog touches a person, would they have to be washed? Would you have to wash that piece of clothing? If they lick you, if a dog licks a person's clothing, does that have to be washed? Yes. According to the majority, we said yes, because the dog's saliva is najis. But if a dog hits you with his paws, for example, does that have to be washed? If it is dry, by consensus, it doesn't have to be washed. And the qa'idah here is that the scholars have, when it comes to something dry, touching something dry, massu al-jaf lil-jaf tahirun bila khilaf. Touching the impure, touching the dry with dry is pure without disagreement. Massu al-jaf lil-jaf tahirun bila khilaf. Something dry touches something dry. It's pure without disagreement. A dog touching you with his paws. Has that left something behind? Some kind of wetness or anything? No, hasn't left anything behind. It's dry. Yeah, it's something dry. Similarly, if blood is dry, and it's on your clothing, and you touch that blood with your hand, do you need to wash the hand? Most likely not, because it won't have affected the hand because it's dry. You'll need to wash the clothing, but you won't need to wash the hand because it hasn't affected it. Something dry, touching something dry, doesn't have an effect. Similarly, alcohol is on the ground. Alcohol is najis. You're walking over alcohol that's been dried. And of course, you'd need to know that it's there in the first place for you to know. Or urine that's been dried. Walking over it, would you now have to wash your shoes? The answer is no, because it hasn't affected it, because a dry doesn't make something dry impure. Okay, that's the general principle. If, however, the dog is sweating, or the dog is just jumped into a river and then come out and made contact with you, then it's better to wash that part of the body. Wash it 7 times or wash it once?
7
Once.
in the word.
On the clothing, now in this case it's 1 wash. 1 wash.
In the word 7 times, yeah?
In the word?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Back home we have big well,
Uh-huh.
and then for example the dog is going down,
Yeah.
and then we take the water, How many times we water?
Dog goes down and drinks
Yes,
from it.
yeah. No. Because back home is different.
Yeah.
When we take the water, because it's too deep, because we take the water.
Okay, fine. You've taken the water out, and then the dog drinks it
When, for example, sometimes dog go inside.
into the
It's
well.
very difficult to take a dog,
Yeah.
Some will go down, and then you need to clean that well,
How large is the water?
And then it 15, 20 meter, 30 meter.
The amount of water, how much is it?
I don't know. It's down.
Very huge
Yes,
amount of water.
Yeah.
No, that doesn't affect the water. Doesn't affect the water. The command here to wash is in a container, small amount of water. Small amount of water only. If you have something the size of a swimming pool and the dog comes and drinks from that, we don't say wash, pour out the swimming pool, wash it 7 times. And hey, for the question here is, if this well is the water is huge, even if the dog was to go down and drink from it, and you bring the water up, it doesn't require washing. The water remains pure, because it's a large amount of water. And we said, remember in the earlier principle, إذا كان الماء قلتين لم يحمل الخبث. If water reaches قلتين, it doesn't carry the impurity. So if water is a large amount, if a dog was to lick it, if somebody was to urinate in it, whatever, if it hasn't changed, it's still pure. Okay, it's still pure. So in this case, washing won't be required. Okay. Of course, if a dog licks a person's clothing, several scholars say that just requires 1 wash, because we don't quite understand the reasoning behind the 7 washes for washing the container. And the principle is, if the reasoning is unknown, then we can't make qiyas on something else. We can't make an analogy on something other than that. And so they say, if a dog licks one's clothing, what's required? Well, just to wash it, just for it to be washed. And the dispute on this can go on forever. We'll just stick to that opinion so that we can get through this book quicker, and without people falling asleep and not having a clue what's going on. Okay. وعن أبي قتادة رضي الله تعالى عنه أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال في الهرة. Abu Qatada رضي الله عنه says in the Hirra, regarding the cat, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم said regarding a cat, إنها ليست بنجس. It's not najis. It's not impure. إنما هي من الطوافين عليكم. So the cat is not najis. So if a cat was to come and lick your clothing, is your salah in this clothing without washing it valid? Yes, it's valid, because it's not najis. إنما هي من الطوافين عليكم, he says, it's one of those who intermingle with you, from those animals that intermingle with you. Similarly, in some places, other animals might be from those that intermingle, like what? The dogs, no, because we have prohibition. Goats are pure anyway. We know that they're pure without doubt. Animals that are eaten are pure, their saliva is pure. The saliva of a camel, the saliva of a horse, the saliva of a sheep and a cow, all of that is pure, tahir. In fact, its urine is tahir, which we'll come on to later. Like what? Huh? That's, again, something that's eaten, so we know that's pure anyway. We're talking about an animal which is pure simply because it's from those that intermingle. Maybe mice, if in some places mice intermingle with you, where would this be? If this was to happen, then they're considered tahir, as is the madhab of Ahmed ibn Hanbal rahimahullah. Okay. وعن أنس بن مالك رضي الله عنه قال جاء أعرابي فبال في طائفة المسجد. عن أنس رضي الله عنه, he says, an A'rabi, a Bedouin, came and urinated in a corner of the masjid. فزجره الناس. So people, were harsh with him and shouted at him. And فلما فنهاهم رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. For the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم prohibited them from that. So don't do that, don't be harsh with him and so on. فلما قضى بوله أمر النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم بذنوب من ماء فأهريق عليه. When the man finished his urine, urinating, the Prophet ﷺ commanded for some water to be brought and for the place to be washed. And it's as simple as that. Simple as that. And that's the easygoing nature of the Prophet ﷺ with people who don't know. With people who don't know. That was his nature, ﷺ. He just said, bring some water, wash it. And he explained to the person that this is a masjid. This kind of thing is not to be done in a masjid. And that's it. And in some narrations, this man says, oh Allah, have mercy on me. And have mercy on Muhammad. And have mercy on no one else. Because the people were so harsh with him. And the Prophet ﷺ was so soft with him. And just simply explained to him. So he said, have mercy on us too and don't have mercy on anyone else. And sometimes we forget this, especially with maybe children or with people who don't know. The first response is always harsh. Don't do that, don't do this and don't do that. Or a person breaks something, accidentally broke a cup. It's a cup, how much is it going to cost? It's not the end of the world. All the person says is, let's gather this, pick it up, throw it in the bin. Assalamu alaikum. It doesn't require too much of a fuss, and the person stresses themselves out and worries and makes the whole house angry, and everyone runs to their room and everyone's worried, and all because of a cup that's broken. And that's common in households. Small things are turned into big problems. Something is broken, something is lost, someone forgot something. Well, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world. There are more important things than that in this dunya to worry about and spend time with. And when people see that from you, they're a lot more comfortable being with you. If someone is known to always be angry and make a big deal out of everything, then it's not the most comfortable person to be with. And learning the khuluq of the Prophet ﷺ sometimes is more important, especially in our time where manners is lacking, is more important sometimes than knowing the rulings. Knowing that urine is najis because of this hadith is good and it's important, but to not at the same time learn the manners of the Prophet ﷺ and his character, that opposes the idea of studying Islam, learning Islam and following the Sunnah. Yeah? Following the Sunnah is in character as well as in fiqh and rulings. And this is one of the proofs that the scholars use to say that small amounts of water, if they haven't changed, they're pure. Because now if I use this cup to wash urine that's on the ground, is this a large amount of water or a small amount of water? Small amount of water. So now an impurity has touched this small amount of water. According to the principle, we say what? This water has now become impure as well. Instead of making it pure, it's become impure as well, more impure. And so therefore the scholars say the Prophet ﷺ washed it here. He didn't wash it with qullatayn, 200 litres. Washed it with less than that. And so therefore they say small amounts of water remain pure, tahir. Even if an impurity comes into them, so long as they haven't changed. So long as they haven't changed. Even if it's a small amount of water. Yeah? And that's the opinion of Malik, and the opinion of Umar, and the opinion of Ibn Mas'ud, and the opinion of Aisha, Abu Hurairah, and Sa'id ibn Musayyib, and Hassan al-Basri, and Sa'id ibn Jubayr, and the fuqaha of Medina, and it's the opinion of many of the companions, like we just mentioned. As for the hadith of Ibn Umar, which says, إِذَا بَلَغَ الْمَاءُ قُلَّتَيْن, then if water is in small amounts, a person just needs to be extra careful. If water is in small amounts, a person needs to be extra careful. And avoid it preferably. Otherwise, the general principle is, if it hasn't changed, can it be used? Yes or no? It can be used. عن ابن عمر رضي الله تعالى عنهما, we'll finish this chapter, 2 ahadith to go, and we'll leave it at that inshallah. عن ابن عمر رضي الله عنهما قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أحلت لنا ميتتان ودمان فأما الميتتان فالجراد والحوت وأما الدمان فالكبد والطحال أخرجه أحمد وابن ماجه وفيه ضعف. Ibn Umar رضي الله عنه says, the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم says, 2 types of dead animals and 2 types of bloods have been made lawful. The general principle is that dead animals are haram or halal. Haram. What's the ayah who recalls? حرمت عليكم الميتة حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم حرمت عليكم الميتة والدم. The dead and blood has been forbidden for you. The blood and the dead has been forbidden for you. Here is an exception. Two types of dead have been permitted. Even though Al-Hafiz says وَفِيهِ ضَعْف, there's a weakness in the hadith. Here Shaikh al-Albani rahimahullah, he considers this hadith authentic. And either way the meaning is correct. Whether it's authentic or not, the meaning is correct. Two types of dead are an exception. The first is al-jarad wal-hut. Al-jarad, which is locusts. And similarly all types of insects. All insects that don't have, the fuqaha say, مَا لَا نَفْسَ لَهُ سَائِلًا, that doesn't have a running soul, meaning blood, doesn't have running blood. Like what? Ant. If you squeeze an ant, is it wet? It's going to be wet, but is that blood? It's not runny blood like in animals. Same with spiders or other small insects. A fly, similarly. All of these are considered tahir. All of them are considered tahir. Which means what? If you're praying, how will this come up? If you're praying and you see a spider walking on your arm and you were to hit it, now you have its wetness on your finger. Does this invalidate your salah? No, because it's tahir. Even though it's dead? Even though it's dead. Because this is one of the exceptions. The second exception is al-hut, fish. And just like fish is all sea animals. What was the first hadith of this book? The Prophet ﷺ said, في البحر قال في البحر هو الطهور ماءه الحل ميتته. Its dead is permissible. The dead of the sea is permissible. The dead of the sea is permissible. Isn't a dead sheep also permissible? And a dead goat and a dead camel? And
No.
they're not permissible. How do we eat them?
You have to slaughter them.
Do we eat them alive or dead?
Dead, but
We eat them dead.
they have to be slaughtered.
So what's meant by dead here then?
He's dead by himself without slaughter.
Dies, it's by itself. Yes, that's what it means. Yeah, it means dies by itself. A sheep dies by itself. A sheep is killed by another sheep. A sheep falls down from a high place. A sheep drowns, or whatever. Any kind of way, this animal dies. Can we eat this now? No. Okay, that's the kind of dead that we are talking about here. What about a fish? A fish that's not slaughtered, taken out of the sea and always found on the seashore. On the beach we find a couple of fish. We don't know, have they been slaughtered, have they been this? What do we say? It's not a problem because this is an exception. Just like fish, all sea animals, all of them. Every single sea animal goes under this, comes into this hadith, regardless of the sea animal. Even if it's a big sea animal, even if it has teeth, even if it has whatever. Okay? All animals that are sea animals are permissible to eat dead, if they're found to be dead. This is of course the sea animal that only lives in the sea, only lives in the water. Because some animals partly live in water and partly on land. That's not the animal we're talking about. We're talking about animals that only live in water. Only live in water. They're allowed, okay, whatever the kind of animal it is. So a person doesn't need to ask, what about this, what about this, what about this, what about this. That's the principle. Anything that lives in the sea only is permissible to eat, and its dead is allowed. And the two types of blood are liver and spleen. Liver and spleen, meaning the liver and the spleen inside animals that are allowed to be eaten, of course. Not any animal. Liver and spleen of animals that can be eaten. The liver of a sheep, the liver of a cow, the liver of, and so on. These kinds of bloods, referred to as bloods in this hadith, they're allowed to be eaten, even though generally the prohibition is that blood is not allowed. That blood is not allowed. And this is an exception. In animals that are permissible to eat, such as sheep, camel, cow, and so on. The dead human being, tahir or najis? tahir. That human being is tahir. The human being that's dead is tahir. And here's a principle: not everything that's tahir is allowed to be eaten. Some people think it's tahir, but you can't eat it. Not everything that's tahir can be eaten. Poison is tahir. Poison is tahir. Which means if you had poison in your pocket while praying, your salah is valid. Does that mean you can eat poison? No. And lots of things can be tahir, but they're not eaten. You don't eat them.
How about alcohol?
Alcohol is najis.
Even in perfumes?
Yes, alcohol is najis. Alcohol is najis according to the 4 Imams, rahmatullahi alayhi. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَاجْتَنِبُوهُ, keep away from it, i.e. Avoid it. And so He didn't just prohibit its drinking, He prohibited its use altogether. However, with perfumes, you'll need to check the type of material that's used, because not all what's used in perfume is the alcohol that's prohibited to drink, and so it will differ from perfume to perfume. And I think now, alhamdulillah, we have lots of, especially in Birmingham, utur, types of itar that can be used that don't have alcohol, and so a way out is easy, alhamdulillah. There is a fatwa on this by the Fiqh Council, and the European Council also, fatwa and research. They explain this in more detail. Maybe another time we can send it out or something. But yeah, generally speaking, alcohol is najis, and therefore, if you find alcohol on the ground and you were to pick it up, and the alcohol touches the hand, that will need to be washed. Do you have to make wudu?
No.
No. Okay, touching an impurity does not require wudu. So many people make a mistake on this. So many people make a mistake on this. They think if you touch something najis, you have to make wudu, which is wrong. Which is wrong. Anything najis that you touch does not require wudu. Anything. Anything. If you were to touch a pig, if you were to put your hand in a pig's mouth, you would not require wudu. What would be required of you? Washing the hand, and that's it. You wash the place that's impure, and that's all. A dog licks your clothing. Does that require wudu? No. It just requires washing that place which was licked. That's it. Only 2 things that you touch invalidate the wudu, and we'll come on to that in the chapter of wudu, inshallah. عن أبي هريرة رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم إذا وقع الذباب في شراب أحدكم فليغمسه ثم لينزعه فإن في أحد جناحيه داء وفي الآخر شفاء أخرجه البخاري. Narrated by al-Bukhari. Here narrated by al-Bukhari. The author didn't say narrated by al-Bukhari, but he didn't say it's authentic, not authentic, Hasan. So is that required? If the author says narrated by al-Bukhari, does he then require to clarify whether it's authentic or not? No, it doesn't require. Doesn't need to. In the other books, he'll need to explain, other than al-Bukhari and Muslim. He'll need to explain. أخرجه ابن ماجه. Is that enough to be sure it's authentic? It's not sufficient. Might be weak. Might be weak. Might be very weak even. أخرجه أحمد في المسند. Definitely authentic? Not necessarily. أخرجه مالك في الموطأ. The vast majority of hadith, if not all of them, are authentic in the Muwatta of Malik. Some of them say all of them in the Muwatta of Malik are authentic. Okay, here he says if a fly falls in the drink of one of you, he should fully immerse it. Immerse it means enter it into that drink, a fly. Immerse it into the drink and then throw it away, because there is a poison in one of its wings and a cure in the other wing. This again gives us the ruling that animals which are like insects, like flies, are tahir or najis. Tahir, they're tahir. Yeah? These animals are tahir. Since we've spoken about the killing of insects, the general principle is that killing insects isn't to be done. A person cannot go around just killing insects, except with 2 conditions. That insect is causing harm or causing irritation. Causing harm or irritation. On the road, if you see a bee, or you see a fly, or you see ants on the ground, do you go around stepping on ants? No, because on their own it's not irritating you. It's Allah's land. Walk away if you don't like it. You can continue moving, and you don't have to stay in your place. However, at home, you're lying in your bed and you see mosquitoes, or you see insects and spiders crawling down and so on. That's either going to cause harm with bites and so on, or it's going to cause irritation. Even if it's not going to harm you, it's causing irritation and not allowing you to sleep. In this case, a person gets rid of the insects with no harm. The final hadith of this chapter, before the author moves on to the chapter of utensils, باب الآنية, he says عن أبي واقد الليثي رضي الله عنه قال قال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ما قطع من البهيمة وهي حية فهو ميت. Whatever is cut off from an animal while it is alive is dead. And this is a principle, a qa'idah, which is very important to understand. And once it's understood, it can be applied to all animals. Whatever is cut off from an animal, a portion that is cut off from an animal, while it is alive, is dead. Meaning that thing is considered dead. How does this work? A sheep's leg is cut off. The leg of a sheep is cut off. Is a sheep that is dead, tahir or najis? Najis. Therefore the leg of this sheep is najis. It takes the same ruling as that animal, dead. Is that clear? We cut off a fish's, we don't have to cut off because it's aggressive, but a fish's tail or its back part is cut off. This part that's been cut off, tahir or najis? Tahir. Why? Because a dead fish is tahir. Therefore any portion cut off is tahir. A human's hand is cut off, or leg comes off. May Allah protect us. That leg or that hand or that arm, tahir or najis? Tahir. Because we said the dead human is tahir. Similarly, the leg of a dog is lying around. That leg, tahir or najis? Najis. A dog alive is najis according to many scholars, let alone when dead. Is that principle understood? That part of the body that's been cut off takes the same ruling as that animal, dead. Let's assume this leg is a dead, whatever that animal is. Tahir or najis? Tahir. Okay, this is tahir, therefore I don't have to wash my hands, I don't have to, etc., etc. Now we live in a place where animals are not lying around, animals are not running around, everything's comfortable, everything's city, everything's car, everything's house. And so we don't face these things as much as they did.
There is one question.
Yeah.
But somebody cut hair of sheep. The sheep is alive, still alive.
Yeah.
But he taken part of hair of sheep.
Yeah.
And he eat it. It's tahir or najis?
Najis.
Because the sheep is still alive.
Exactly. This is when it applies.
But sometimes it's cut by anyway. The part of hair of the sheep.
This is when it applies. The animal is still alive and the leg is cut off.
Not like maybe part.
Or the ear, or the nose, or whatever it is. Any part of that body. If it's cut off, that takes the same ruling as dead. If the animal is dead anyway, alhamdulillah, we don't even have to look at this because it's dead anyway. All of it is najis. Okay, we're talking about the animal is alive and its ear is cut off, for example. This piece is now najis. Do you have to wash your hand? No, because it's dry. And we said the qa'idah is what? Who remembers the qa'idah?
Anything dry that touches dry.
Lamsul jaf ilil jaf tahirun bila khilaf. Touching the dry, touching the dry is pure without disagreement. Something dry touches your hand is dry, the ear is dry. You don't have to wash your hands, otherwise you don't eat it, definitely.
You mean, yeah, that means you're not allowed to eat.
It's not allowed to eat. And here's another qa'idah. Eating anything najis is haram. That's a qa'idah, principle, very important to learn. Anything najis is haram to eat. Is blood najis? Yes. Therefore, eating it is haram. Okay. This portion of the body, the ear or something else is cut off. Tahir or najis?
Najis.
If it's an animal which is najis, dead, therefore it's najis, therefore eating it is haram. Even something like a sheep. We normally can eat a sheep. Chicken, can it be eaten? Yes, it can be eaten. Part of the chicken is chopped off, and the chicken is alive. That part is najis, so eating it is haram. Eating anything najis is haram. That is the final hadith of this chapter, and the author then moves on to Babul Aniya. Aniya, containers. Why? Because containers were used in order to make wudu. So now we've spoken about tahara, water, types of water, which water is tahir, which is tahur, which is najis. Now the containers used in order to make that tahara. And he doesn't just mention utensils, he mentions a few other things that are important, which we'll come on to next week, inshaAllah. Wallahu a'lam wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi.